Hi, welcome to the GreenBiz studio. I'm Margaret, the director of the carbon program here at GreenBiz, and I'm joined today by Taylor Francis, co-founder of Watershed. Hey, Taylor, welcome.
Margaret, thanks for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Well, I have to start out with a huge congratulations. Big announcement this week on your raise. Tell me the Watershed story. How'd you get here?
Well, thank you. It is an exciting week for us. We're on a mission to accelerate the climate economy. I think that's why we're all here to put a big dent in solving climate change and help build the new zero carbon economy. The way we do that is by building software tools to help companies achieve their climate goals. We're lucky to work with a lot of green biz companies on that work and on that mission. And for us, this kind of new fundraise, this moment is just about more resources to build more tools to help companies report on their carbon emissions with rigor and take action that really matters for the planet. So lots of hard work ahead.
Okay, so today I want to talk to you about how companies move from measurement to actually taking really impactful action for climate. And I was reading some of the guides on the Watershed blog, and one of them recommended that companies start with small wins. And I was curious, what is a small win? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, our experience, and the folks here will know even better, is that climate action at companies is just like any other project at a company, which is you want to start by figuring out where are you today? What are the opportunities? And then just momentum breeds momentum and action breeds action. And so we see that starting out by taking impactful action on clean power, by starting the journey on scope 3 and suppliers and actually figuring out which of your suppliers are already on the road on climate, which of them need to get started. Those are examples of things that take you out of just reporting, paperwork, do the numbers mode, which I think can be the trap for sustainability teams. It's turning into a game of whack-a-mole on sustainability disclosure, and you can spend your whole year stuck in reporting. So it's important to kind of get out of that mode and into the mode of what are things that demonstrate real progress, that are good for the business, that start to bend that graph down. And we've just seen that the companies that start with that type of action get momentum. And once you've got the momentum, anything's possible.
I think I see companies taking two paths. One, set a super ambitious goal and figure out how to get there later. The
Totally.
other path is set a goal where you know how to achieve it. The path is clear, but it's a much more modest goal. So, how do you guide companies between those two kind of ends of the spectrum?
I think it's up to every company. I think there's a bit of a combination. Look, we're all in this to do something really ambitious, which is the planet is not currently on track to get to net zero by 2050, and it needs to be. And so I think companies that put a stake in the ground and say, we want to get there early, and there is aspiration, there is ambition, there is commitment around having the company be a leader on net zero. That is great. That is really important. And that collectively kind of pushes the whole world forward. And if you've got your long term goal, I think you need to have your 1, 2, 3, 5 year plan. And there, I think grounding that in a practical reality of what is possible, what are we doing, what are the teams that are already engaged is really important because the only way you get to the long term commitment is by having the kind of short term momentum that comes from making things happen.
All right. Okay. Let's dig in a little more there. If I can bring up one topic that makes people pull their hair out, it is scope three.
Totally.
This is probably one of the biggest challenges for so many companies. And you brought up supplier engagement earlier. So can you talk through what do you see people doing that's really successful to address their scope three? And what do you see that's maybe not working so well?
Scope 3 is where it's all at for most companies, right? And it's where climate action gets multiplied and amplified. And it is hard. I think there are a lot of companies that view this as a bit of a black box that is hard to have any influence on. We've been lucky to work with some of the biggest supply chains in the world. The thing that we have seen is that there's kind of been a false choice in the past between, on the one end, just being stuck in survey back and forth endlessly, where the only supply chain action is you distribute a lot of surveys, the suppliers are stuck in survey hell, Nothing good comes of that. And then on the other end, trying to, engineer a carbon reduction program for every supplier in hundreds of different sectors and hundreds of different geographies, and really getting into the mode of micromanaging their climate program when it's hard enough to make your own corporate climate program get some legs. So those are that's been the false choice in the past. The thing that we recommend is for companies to work with their suppliers on a bit of a spectrum. So we work with one of the world's largest retailers. They've started by focusing on a few categories of grocery and food products, and then assessing, okay, what are the 2 or 3 things that really matter in each of those categories? Maybe it's manure management. Maybe it has something to do with fertilizer and pesticides. Maybe it has something to do with on-field renewable energy. And instead of kind of burying the suppliers in an avalanche of surveys, figure out with suppliers who's doing what on each of those 3 zones that really matters. And then make the dialogue with the supplier about concrete practices. What are the things that we can do together that actually have the biggest impact? We built technology that makes that more viable and possible. But I've just seen that zone of, kind of ground the engagement with suppliers in actual practices that they can deploy in their operations, means that instead of spending the first 2 years in kind of an endless survey loop, you spend the first 2 years in helping suppliers take the first steps that actually show up in a meaningful way in their footprint and in your footprint.
People increasingly care that their employer is serious about climate and is living up to their climate values. And so employee engagement in climate strategy is really important.
Totally.
So what do you see there? What do you see companies doing well to engage employees on climate action?
It's a huge superpower to have the rest of the company behind you. And I think that the 2 things that we've seen work well are, look, employees care about real results, right? They care about the things that actually matter. And I think the time of employees focusing on things that are kind of superficial, feel good, but don't really matter in the grand scheme are gone. And people know that the things that really matter are the supply chain, the products, the impact on customers, more than some of the kind of superficial things. So I think one, it's employees are looking for you to focus on what matters in, for the numbers. And then number 2, every successful sustainability program that I know is built on alliances and partnerships with teams internally. Sustainability teams have done a great job getting champions in procurement, champions in finance, champions in products and materials and real estate and facilities. And I think converting that latent energy of employee engagement into a council and a network of champions across teams, that's where that becomes really powerful.
All right, Taylor, thanks so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.